Hey everybody, it's 3 o'clock and it's Tuesday. That means it's Tech Tuesday. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the latest news that would be of interest to broadband service providers, things about fiber, satellite, and fixed wireless. Oh my, I'll be right back in just a second. Thanks for joining me. Rick Usey here with Zcorum. So Tech Tuesday, I thought I'd cover some broadband stories. I've been talking a lot about broadband deployment just every day on my daily stream that I do at various times. But for Tech Tuesday today at 3 o'clock, I wanted to cover some stories that are obviously going to be related because they're about broadband, but a little bit more about just some stories that were in the news recently about the broadband industry. So let's get right to that. So first off, this is a story in TV Tech here, and I thought this was interesting. So, the CES show took place this year, 2022, and the average U.S. broadband home now has 14.5 connected devices. So just think about that, how many devices that is in a home, and we're now up to 14.5. So if you're a service provider, obviously these are all devices that are connecting up at some point in the home, probably through a Wi-Fi connection, and then out the broadband connection that you've got going into the home. So Parks Associates released new data at CES 2022 showing that the number of connected devices in broadband homes continues to explode, going from 9.6 in 2017 to 14.5 per home in 2021. And actually that 9.6 is higher than I thought it would be from 2017. So it seems like we've exploded even more. I thought, well, 14.5 seems like a lot. I thought it would have been lower in 2017, but it's not. So it still has a pretty good increase. And 41% of broadband homes now have a streaming media player. So that's kind of key as well for cable operators. For example, people now have something like a Roku or a Chromecast or some other kind of device, Amazon Fire Stick, whatever. They've got some kind of streaming device in the home, and I'm probably not taking into account TVs that are connected as well, streaming ready. The data is based on surveys of 10,000 U.S. broadband households. 38% of U.S. broadband households have a gaming console. 36% subscribe to or are trialing a video gaming service. 31% of households, or 30+ million households, use free ad-based OTT services. So free OTT services, sometimes it's called ad-supported TV, and sometimes it's it's, what's the other acronym, ad-based, or in some cases it's not free. In some cases you get a discount, but free ad-supported would be what they're calling FAST, F-A-S-T, free ad-supported TV, and that has been a popular option for people lately because of things like subscription fatigue. So as they cut the cord, maybe they haven't cut the cord, maybe they've still got cable TV or IPTV, and they are adding subscription services like Netflix and Disney Plus and Discovery Plus and Paramount Plus and all the others on top of that, and you start to see the subscription prices rise. And if you've cut the cord to save money, and then suddenly they're adding all these subscription services to get all the content they want, they start to get a little bit fatigued from all that subscription money that they're paying out every month. So these fast free ad-supported options have been growing. 50% of cord cutters cite the high cost of traditional pay TV services as the reason to cancel the service. But again, people cancel a service, they had this nice base of content that they could pull up their guide and watch all kinds of shows. But they said, oh, it's too expensive, so they cut the cord, and then they realized, wow, to replace a lot of that, it's going to cost a lot of money. There's a little bit more flexibility, obviously, if you're doing streaming going month to month versus these long-term commitments that sometimes you have to pay on pay TV. So the pay TV operators, whether that's traditional cable TV, IPTV operators, they got to consider the fact that people see these prices and they're canceling the service, and they don't want to sign back up because of long commitment deals. So they're going to have to start looking at ways to maybe unbundle some content, provide lower cost options, and provide the ability for people to cancel the service. I don't think they will. If the price is reasonable and there's a month-to-month deal, they'll probably keep it because it's very convenient. But when somebody's cut the cord, or if they don't have the cord, they don't want to make a commitment into a 1 or 2 year deal to get video. So that's just something that they need to look into. This shows the increase in devices over the last several years from 2017 to 2021. What I found interesting here is the total connected health devices, how that has been a large growing segment right there. So That may be due to the pandemic and telehealth, telemedicine kinds of things. I don't think that would count your smartwatch. My hand went out of the picture there, but I don't think that would count your smartwatch. I don't think, because that's something that generally is going to connect to your phone and an app there. It could be, because we're going through Wi-Fi in the home, so maybe so. Because this seemed a little bit high, this number for telehealth and people subscribing to that or having some kind of a connected device. Because normally what you would think on telehealth would be some kind of device where they could read, check your pulse or kinds of other things that they can do online. You've got average number of connected health devices right there, average number of connected smart home devices. That would be this color right here. I can see that. Smart home could be thermostats, video cameras, those kinds of things. That's definitely been growing. And then you've got just in general, average number of connected CE devices. CE, not sure what that is. Including computer, okay, just your general, including computing, mobile, smart speakers, okay, entertainment devices, lots of smart speakers out there. So I thought that was interesting. People using their broadband connections more and more for those types of things. Something else that's more data here, Gigabit subscriptions set for big increase next year, according to Ntca. And you can see why, with lots of funds coming out in various places, not just in the United States, but in other countries, as well as just, again, the pandemic and the impacts from that. Global Gigabit subscribers are expected to jump 50 million in 2022, more than doubling from 24 million at the end of 2020, according to a report from analyst Ntca. Fiber playing a key role, of course. There were fewer than 620 million fiber subscriptions globally at the end of 2020, but we expect those to grow to 719 million in 2022. And they've got a chart here, and you can see, you've got your different technologies here. Cable modem looks like it's fairly steady throughout this time, so that's interesting. If you're a cable operator, you're not seeing a decline here. It doesn't look like there's any growth happening, but there's not a big decline. Now, whatever growth there is in the cable industry, in the DOCSIS industry, won't necessarily, I should say the cable industry, won't necessarily be DOCSIS. It could be fiber to the home. So some of these fiber numbers that you see could be cable operators that are expanding in new areas with fiber to the home rather than extending their DOCSIS plant, which makes sense for them, because these days, if you're going to be doing high-speed DOCSIS, gigabit speeds, then you're having to do something like DOCSIS 4.0, looking at really extending your fiber really deep in the plant, getting as close to the customer as possible. So if you're going to go just about to the customer, you might as well go all the way. So I don't know how much that will be overbuilding on territory that already has hybrid fiber coax, HFC plant, but we're seeing it flat here, but I'm assuming that there's going to be some growth in this section being fiber that could be cable operators. We've got DSL, as you would see and expect, we've got a decrease in there. I would expect this decrease to be steeper decline than what they're showing here because of the increase in fiber, both on the cable operator side and on the obviously the telco side, and entrants like 5G and satellite. They're just going to be, people are going to be leaving DSL in droves. So I expect this number, this to be a faster decrease than we're seeing here. Then we see this line right here. This is the percentage of fiber, and we see that that number is ticking up much, much faster than this trend right here, and that's just because fiber is the way that people are going in general. Ntca warns that service providers must carefully consider market demand for their gigabit strategies and make targeted investments in fiber, analyzing a number of factors including infrastructure challenges, market competition, and expected demand. And that's interesting because when I was looking at recently on a broadcast, I think it was last Tuesday for Tech Tuesday, I was looking at the Ntca broadband report, and it showed how many of their operators are now offering gigabit or have gigabit available. And I believe the number was up over 90%, if I'm remembering that correctly, where gigabit is available in a lot of these territories and the people that answered the survey. But when you looked at what people were subscribing to, it was the plans that were under a gigabit. So it was like 25 to 100 and 100 to just under a gig that was a sweet spot where people were subscribing. So just because you have gigabit doesn't mean people are going to pay for it right now. Of course, back to the other story, all of the devices that are connecting, as you get that demand, more cameras connected, more IoT devices reporting, more people streaming. We're going to see streaming is always popular. You may need at some point to get that gigabit. So if you get gigabit, you're going to need it at some point. It's just that demand right now might not be there for everyone. Operators need to continually monitor potential competitors and constantly innovate, refresh, and build service offerings so they stay ahead of rivals. And that's what I was talking about with the DSL side, right? So if you've got a DSL plant, you need to be doing something about that now. You're already losing customers if you're in that situation. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to stimulate demand for higher speed broadband everywhere, for everything from remote work and education to telemedicine and safe entertainment. So we did see the health devices being high there, so some of that may be telemedicine. You can see here how, survey how has your reliance on services from your home broadband provider changed during the COVID-19 crisis, and you do see a good number here, 22, 32, 38% are saying increase significantly or increase somewhat. So, and then unchanged for a pretty good percentage as well. And there's a few that were real outliers here. Not sure how that they were decreased significantly on that number there, or decreased somewhat. So that's surprising. Which features of your broadband service do you consider to be most important to you? So 100% reliable service, 55% said that. So 100% reliable, it's hard to be 100%, but 5 nines up all the time as much as possible, 55%. 52% receiving a fast broadband speeds, that's important, and that's where that gigabit plays in, or something that can certainly expand to that easily. 46% good customer service. Good customer service is always important because as you get more competitors out there, if you've got 2-3 companies that are offering comparable service as far as speed and reliability, sometimes it's customer service that makes a difference. And that's the thing that then people complain about. So if the speed is good, latency is good, service is reliable, but when they call you, they don't get good service, then that's going to be what they complain about. That's what people are going to hear about, and that's what's going to drive people to the competitors that are there. Good Wi-Fi signal in every room is important. Low cost, important, but you see low cost is quite a ways down here now. It's still 39%, but not up here with reliability and fast and good Wi-Fi. High quality experience of applications, and then good range of Wi-Fi features. So that could be Wi-Fi management, being able to easily set your password, set up a guest access, that kind of thing, I would imagine. In 2020, excuse me, in 2020, just 2% of broadband subscriptions were more than a gig, but this is expected to double to 4% in 2022. So it's still a relatively low number, 2%, but it's doubling to 4%. Subscribers with access to 500 megabits per second to 1 gig will increase from 15% in 2020 to 21% in 2022 there, with 17% of broadband subscriptions projected to reach speeds of over 1 gig by 2026. So it's really going to be increasing from there. And again, here's something showing the increase in speed, and you see these lower speeds are decreasing here. You've got your green is 100 to 500, so that number is going to be increasing and then decreasing as your 500 to a gig starts to increase, and then you've got your gig speeds increasing here as well. So all these numbers are going up, and you can see the trend line for the average is increasing very quickly. Notably, while high bandwidth entertainment like augmented virtual reality and gaming were thought to be drivers for ever faster home broadband speeds in pre-pandemic times, Ntca's report barely gives these services an honorable mention for gigabit's growth, referring to them just once as other drivers. So obviously the pandemic was the big driver, but as that recedes, and I expect it to recede now that pretty much everybody's had COVID, I think once we get through this wave of Omicron, the pandemic will be, for all practical purposes, over. I'm assuming that that's going to be the case. So once that happens, then some of these other factors will bubble up to the top, and virtual reality and augmented reality, I think, will be important, because I think there's going to be more people that are going to be interested in that as for various reasons, including entertainment or work purposes. We'll see how that goes. Then speaking of fiber and what's going on, Frontier is a company that's one of these companies that's had a lot of DSL in the ground, and they're trying to overcome that and losing a lot of customers to cable or wireless and some other competitors. So with 45,000 new fiber subscribers Frontier sees its first positive broadband growth in 5 years. So they've not grown. And you think about the way broadband, the industry has grown over the last 5 years. And this is their first time growing in the last 5 years because of the fact that they have not been able to make investments in their broadband infrastructure because they were having financial issues, I'm sure related to the fact that they had not been on top of things and upgraded their DSL plant. So they finally made some progress there. Frontier EVP and CFO Scott Beasley updated investors today, highlighting that the company saw its first broadband growth in the past 5 years during Q4. The company added 45,000 fiber broadband subscribers in the quarter. It doesn't seem like that many, but that's what they added. And when you think about the DSL losses, it says when combined with legacy DSL losses, they added 9,000 net new broadband subscribers. So it's a good thing they were putting in fiber because they really only added 9,000 net new because of the DSL subscribers they lost. Frontier is currently on an aggressive fiber build strategy that aims to add a total of 6 million locations by the end of 2025, resulting in 10 million locations reached in total by their fiber services. Beasley reports the company added 600,000 new fiber locations in 2021, with a goal of adding another 1 million locations by the end of 2022. And they say supply chain challenges have not had a significant impact on Frontier, which is interesting because that is impacting lots of companies. So they're not finding that that's impacting them. Wave 1 of this fiber expansion, Beasley characterized as a bit of cherry picking, resulting in lower build costs of $500 to $600 per location. So they've been going out to adjacent, well, probably primarily in their current service areas where they have DSL, they've been ripping that out and putting in fiber. So these are areas that they're already serving, and they're probably, well, certainly areas that are more dense locations. They've got a lot of customers there or potential customers there that maybe were on DSL. A lot of them maybe have left, but it's still a dense area as far as population, and they can go ahead and upgrade the plant there and have a good chance of getting lots of customers. They don't have as many miles to run, so they're looking at the build-out costs of $500 to $600 per location. They're now beginning Wave 2, which will take them through 2025, getting them to 6 million new locations, a bit higher at $900 to $1,000 per location. So these are going to be areas that are maybe further runs, maybe a little more rural, maybe some adjacent areas that they're going into. Wave 3, coming, but outside the scope of their current committed to fiber builds, so they haven't really laid out what they're going to do there. But he said there could be some scenarios where you accelerate the build of some locations in Wave 3 into Wave 2. So they may decide, we're going to accelerate some things. That will likely be a destination of significant government funding, as the roughly $45 billion of infrastructure bill funding that goes to broadband will be targeted at locations like Wave 3. So Wave 3, the most expensive areas to build out, where again it's more rural, maybe low income for various reasons. It's a higher cost area, but those are the areas that are going to be targeted by the Biden infrastructure money that's going to be coming out late this year, at the earliest next year, early next year probably, but also other funds that are available right now, like ARPA, USDA Connect, and certain rural farm areas, those kinds of things. There's money available now, and that's all targeted at areas that are a little bit harder to reach. That's the whole point, right, of trying to get this broadband money out there, is to reach those areas. Competitive threats. Beasley is quite confident that the symmetrical fiber capacity the company's building will more than hold its own against rising competition from fixed wireless and low Earth orbit satellite broadband providers. 1 gig symmetrical speeds now, and they're going to launch 2 gig in the first half of 2022, and eventually they'll move to 10 gig. They've trialed 25 gig successfully. He says, I don't think fixed wireless has the capacity to compete with that core infrastructure. It will be competitive in certain niches of the market, but I don't think it can compete with our core symmetrical speeds and fiber. So his point there is, and I think he's right, that fixed wireless, if there's already a good wired connection, again, some of these same things that people are looking for, which would be reliability, good speeds, good customer service. In other words, there's not a good reason for them to quit their current wired broadband provider. Then it's kind of hard for wireless or satellite to make a play there. But if there's not somebody there and a wireless provider gets in, or somebody signs up with satellite, sometimes it's going to be hard to unhook them from that service as well, because again, if people are satisfied with the service, they're less likely to take. It's just a hassle, right? It's a hassle to change. So they need to get into these places if they want that to be the case. BC also sees a little threat from satellite, suggesting it will only be a niche serving in ultra-rural markets, and that's true as well. So satellite's going to be those areas where there's not good wired service. But satellite, it's out there now, so both satellite and 5G are right now starting to target. Satellite obviously can target just about anywhere, and 5G is starting to target with this mid-band spectrum areas that are more rural. And again, whoever gets there first sometimes has that stickiness where it's hard to unseat them. Lumen is also talking about their fiber deployments. The CEO says they hit their rate of 5 times. Their rate is 5 times its historical rate. They plan to increase locations reached by fiber from the current 2.5 million to 12 million. That represents 5 times increase over the company's traditional deployment rate. So they are really accelerating their deployment. Those deployments target the 16 states that Lumen will retain after plans to sell its local exchange business in 20 states. More than 2/3 of the markets that Lumen will retain, or 70%, are in metro areas where the company is targeting deployment cost below $1,000 per location. So that's kind of in that second wave tier that Frontier was looking at, that $1,000, or let's say below. So, and they are in larger markets, but they had a similar problem as far as being very DSL focused. So that's why they're again trying to accelerate their fiber deployments. Like other broadband providers that have relied in large part on traditional copper network infrastructure, or DSL in other words, Lumen's been losing broadband customers in recent years. The company hopes that its investment in fiber will reverse that trend and set a goal of returning to revenue growth within 2 to 3 years. So again, a similar situation to Frontier there for them. What about satellite? So you've got low Earth orbit satellites now that are up in space, that are beaming internet down. This would be Starlink is Elon Musk's venture, SpaceX. So, but here the headline says Starlink satellite broadband median speeds in decline, short of RDOF goal. So the median download speed seen by users of SpaceX Starlink satellite broadband in the U.S. in the third quarter was 87.25 megabits per second, according to Ookla. They do speedtest.net, I believe is the site. A decline from the second quarter, when Starlink users saw a median download speed of 97.23 megabits per second. Ookla saw sufficient samples to analyze Starlink performance in 304 U.S. counties. The fastest Starlink speed was Santa Fe County, New Mexico, where the median speed was 146.58 megabits per second. The slowest, Drummond Township in Michigan, 46.63 megabits per second, nearly 100 megabits per second slower. What's interesting about that is when Starlink launched, if I recall, they were launching in that area of, let's say, Michigan, kind of upper U.S. and Canada. So that's where they started. So they started there. You know, they launched these constellations of satellites, and then they've got to expand out as they launch more satellites. They're expanding the service that they can cover, and they were expanding further south. So it's interesting that the fastest speeds right now are in Santa Fe County, New Mexico at 146, kind of lower U.S. And then you've got the slowest up in Michigan, the upper U.S., 46.63. So I think that is, as it says here, I believe in a minute, is it's probably more people on the service because it's been up longer in the upper United States. So you've got more people using the satellites, and as you get more people using the resources, speeds go down. And down in the southern United States, they maybe have hooked up fewer people. The service is available, but you can only get people connected so quickly with your terminals. And if they're having issues getting terminals set up, which it sounds like they are, which we'll see, I think, in a story coming up here, that you've got fewer people using the service basically in the southern United States. So that would account for that. Starlink's slowest median broadband speeds exceed the FCC broadband download speed definition of 25 megabits per second, which is really kind of key, right? So to be classified as broadband in the U.S. under the FCC right now is 25 by 3. Now the FCC has been trying to really make that more 100 by 20 with all of these broadband funds that they're making available. They're saying, yeah, 25 by 3 is broadband, but if you want to get these funds and actually be able to install broadband services for somebody and get a grant or get funds, then you really need to be doing at least 100. So, but the definition is still 25 by 3. Starlink's performance is below the 100 megabits per second speeds the company would be required to provide service in the RDOF program, Rural Development digital opportunity fund. So that's kind of important as well. Although if Starlink, I believe they petitioned to try to get a delay in getting these speeds looked at because of the fact that they have to get satellites up in the air and they have to get people installed. Says here, some people have questioned whether Starlink can meet its RDOF speed and coverage commitments when its volume of customers increases. And the latest Ookla data doesn't do anything to belie that belief. So that is a concern for people. It's especially something that fiber operators and others are bringing up, cable operators are bringing up, that satellite is not the way to go if you're going to be getting funds like from RDOF. And then you can see here the performance versus fixed broadband in the US. So here you've got Starlink sitting here with a pretty good download speeds. Their upload speeds are pretty good as well compared to other services. Not, here's some satellite operators and here's all fixed. So their uploads are not quite as good in some cases. And this is all fixed here. So you've got Starlink and you've got all fixed broadband here. Then you've got your other satellite operators. And you can see that they're not nearly as fast. You've got Usenet and Viasat, not nearly as fast. And then you really see the difference in latency. So Starlink at 44 milliseconds is really pretty darn good considering this is a satellite, but it's low Earth orbit. So instead of 30,000 miles up in space, it's like just a couple hundred. So you can see the difference there, 44 milliseconds versus 744 and 629. But then for fixed broadband, the average is 15 milliseconds, so it's obviously much better there. But this is still really good latency. So here's another kind of ding for Starlink, and that's just how quickly are they getting people connected. Not so much about speeds, but how many customers they have. Recent performance for SpaceX Starlink service reveals somewhat underwhelming momentum. Starlink has a total of 145,000 subscribers across the globe. That's really not bad considering how long they've been around, and these are satellite customers. It's not that bad, but I guess it's underwhelming compared to what was planned, because that's only at 5,000 subscribers from a similar revelation last November, according to CNBC. SpaceX blames the slowdown in part on supply chain woes, specifically a shortage of silicon chips. So they're saying that the supply chain is impacting them, and I can see where it would be if they've got all these terminals. You got satellites you got to make and launch, and then you've got terminals for each customer. It's kind of going to be similar to you need a cable modem or you need an ONT or something to get your cable modem service or your fiber service at the home. But these terminals are pretty sophisticated. They've got the antenna in there, and it's one that can track the satellites in the air. So it's pretty sophisticated technology. Back in May 2021, CNBC reported that Starlink had 500,000 pre-orders, with prospective customers paying a deposit of $99. So I'm assuming they're saying that all 500,000 of these people had paid a deposit of $99 to be able to get the service. At the time, Musk suggested the company wouldn't have much issue reaching those 500,000 customers. It seems like there are hundreds of thousands of prospective Starlink subscribers waiting for service, with many having waited well over 8 months so far. So again, the supply chain may be getting these terminals built, and then also possibly in the Northeast, maybe holding off on getting new customers. It sounds like in the South, they're doing well. But in the Northeast, if they have the terminals available and they hook more people up, that could mean that the speeds could go lower. So they're probably balancing how many customers do we add to a network before we can get satellites up, and do we need to consider how it looks to the FCC if our speeds are going down and they're under 100 megabits per second. So they're probably playing that game as well. Starlink service is now live in 25 countries and regions. Thursday's launch placed 49 Starlink satellites into orbit. Starlink could eventually place over 12,000 satellites into orbit. They're just shy of 1,900 in orbit today, including the 49 from yesterday, which was a couple days ago, I think. Highlighting again, we're still quite early in the game. So again, 1,900 of these low Earth orbit satellites are up in space now. They're the only ones right now in the game. There's others that are trying to get into the game, but Starlink is going to be there well before they are. And here's a not so bad story for them out of Europe. So Musk's Starlink outperforms fixed broadband in France and Germany and the UK. Elon Musk's Starlink broadband, and this is the same report from Ookla, is giving faster speeds than fixed broadband from telcos, according to Ookla. Starlink is nearly twice as fast as the fixed broadband average in the UK, where the company will soon be competing with OneWeb, in which the UK government has a stake. So OneWeb is another company that's wanting to get these low Earth orbit satellites up in space, but again, they're way behind, considering that SpaceX, Starlink, has 1,900 of them up there right now. BT, OneWeb's wholesale partner, won't even start testing terminals until the new year, and no date has been set for a launch to the public. So the new year, I'm assuming, means 2023. Right? Because this story, December, oh, I take that back. Sorry, this story is a little bit older. This is from December. So they're not, for a minute there, I was like, wait a minute, 2023. So they're talking about they won't start testing until this year at some point. Where was I there? Oh, and yeah, no date for a launch to the public. Ookla says that the median download speed in the UK in the third quarter, July through September, was 111.66 megabits per second for Starlink, up from 108.30. So they're over that 100 mark, and they were increasing in Europe. So this is probably a factor of customers. The median speed for fixed broadband was 53.16 megabits per second. So it's funny how, a lot of times, excuse me, a lot of times the United States gets dinged on our broadband service. And here we're this massive country, right, with urban areas, but also these vast rural expanses. And we get dinged for not having good broadband service, but yet, if we look at some of these numbers from Europe, we're doing far better. Starlink users in France saw a median download speed of 102 in Q3 2021, down from 139 in Q2, likely due to increased usage. So again, maybe they're having some success there, signing people up, more people using it. Starlink's median download speed in Germany of 95.4 megabits per second was much faster than the country median for Starlink of 60.99 megabits per second in Q3 for Starlink. So maybe they're talking about Starlink there and not all over, or the other providers. In France, Starlink's download speed easily beat the countrywide median for fixed broadband of 75.47 megabits per second. So again, Starlink is beating the fixed wireless that they have in France as well. So they're doing well there. Then finally, what's up with fixed wireless as opposed to satellite? Verizon doubles down on fixed wireless bet. And I was talking about this the other day on my broadband deployment news, in that Verizon is really looking at 5G as being a big play for them in any areas where they don't have fiber already. So in areas where they've got Fios, they're not thinking about fixed wireless so much. But here, we can see that this is going to be a big focus for them. Verizon appears to be getting more serious about fixed wireless internet services and will position Verizon to compete more aggressively with wired internet service providers like Comcast, Frontier, and Charter Communications. So again, in areas where Frontier is building out fiber, looks like Verizon is looking to compete with them with this fixed wireless service. Fixed wireless access prices over 5G. Customers on some of its unlimited smartphone data plans will be eligible for a 50% reduction in the price of its fixed wireless access service. So one of the things that they're trying to do here is make the price really attractive for people, especially if they're already a Verizon customer getting their mobile service. So they've got two plans. They've got 5G Home and 5G Home Plus. So this is a plan that's actually fixed wireless using 5G. So it's not like you're taking your phone in your house or anything like that. You're going to have an antenna, and you're going to be hooked up in your house. And I think, if I recall, you get a Wi-Fi 6 router as part of this package. So $50 per month for their 5G Home Plus, and $70 per month for a second plan, the Plus plan. Oh, 5G Home and 5G Plus. So it's $50 per month and $70 per month. And if I recall, the 5G Home Plus was a Gigabit plan, and there was question as to whether who can get that, and they were a little bit vague about that. So it sounds like the $70 per month plan is primarily going to be for those who have access to millimeter wave, which is the very fast 5G service. It's got very fast spectrum, although it doesn't travel very far, won't go through walls, only available in really dense areas, urban areas where you've got these microcells, and each cell has to have line of sight, and then that final cell to your home or business has to have line of sight. So you can get gig service there, but I don't think you're going to get gig service off of their mid-band spectrum. So that's probably what people are going to be buying on this $50 per month plan is going to be mid-band spectrum. And there you can get over 100 megabits per second. You can get probably 300, 400 megabits per second in really good situations. Thus, a single-line Verizon smartphone customer who subscribes to the company's $80 per month 5G Do More unlimited data plan can also sign up for its 5G home service and pay just $25 per month for unlimited in-home internet services. That's a pretty darn good deal. That brings the total cost of unlimited smartphone and home internet services for one user to just $105 per month. So now that's just one user. I'm assuming the home is the home, right? So you get $25 per month and you get your unlimited in-home internet service. So anybody in your home can use that. But obviously, if you've got your 5G, what do they do it? 5G Do More unlimited data plan, you're going to have, if you've got other people in the family that have cell phones, you're going to have somehow have them be paying for their phone service as well. You're going to be paying for those phones and those subscriptions. We've been thinking about this fixed wireless access for years and years. We just didn't have the capacity to do it, explained Verizon CTO Kyle Malady. Now with 5G technology and C-band spectrum, he said that's changed. Now we can. And this is really the key, is that Verizon invested very heavily in C-band spectrum. C-band is the spectrum that was being used by satellite downlinks, people that were beaming video, for example, when you see those big satellite dishes at a cable company or at a TV station. C-band was used to beam that down, and the FCC has been working with satellite companies to clear the lower end of that spectrum, and that's being cleared now. And C-band has been, like I say, the spectrum's been purchased by Verizon and AT&T. So AT&T also is going to be launching their C-band 5G spectrum on the 19th of this month. They agreed to hold off until the 19th of January because of some concerns about being around airports and altimeters. So they're going to have a little exclusion zone around airports for at least the next 6 months to try to allay some of the concerns there. But they agreed to put off their launch until January 19th. They were originally planning on doing that in December. It was Verizon's acquisition of more than $50 billion worth of mid-band C-band spectrum licenses last year that seemed to turn the tide. Such licenses have been described as the Goldilocks spectrum because they can cover wide geographic areas with speedy connections. And that's as compared to millimeter wave. So again, millimeter wave, very fast, but very short lengths, very short distances, line of sight, whereas mid-band spectrum, like the C-band, goes a lot further, can propagate better. It's closer to 4G as far as coverage, but it's quite a bit faster than 4G, so that provides a good 5G experience. That launch will increase the total number of households covered by Verizon's fixed wireless access to around 20 million, or roughly 15% of the entire United States. So in one batch right there on the 19th, they're going to be able to reach 20 million people. So you can see the impact of this, that this will have on people like Frontier that are trying to install fiber, lumens. You can see the impact this will have on the Biden infrastructure bill. If Verizon and AT&T get out there and suddenly can cover large swaths of the country, this is what I talked about the other day on Broadband Deployment News. If they can suddenly cover large swaths of the country with 5G, then what does that mean for the upcoming broadband maps that are coming out that are going to determine whether people can get access to broadband service at least 100 megabits per second? If it's under 100, then it's considered underserved. If it's under 25, then it's considered unserved. But if all these folks can suddenly get up to 100, then that's going to be taken off of the map. And that money, any money that you get, is not going to be eligible for these areas if they're suddenly not considered underserved. A far more concrete measurement of Verizon's fixed wireless progress is the actual number of customers it's supporting. Late last year, Verizon reported its fixed wireless access customer numbers for the first time. It added 55,000 subscribers in the third quarter of 2021 for a grand total of 150,000. That puts Verizon well behind T-Mobile, which counts more than 500,000 fixed wireless customers. Now that, again, can change very, very quickly because of the fact that T-Mobile, they've had this mid-band spectrum. So T-Mobile had a pretty good amount of mid-band spectrum, and they acquired Sprint, and they got even more. And I think a lot of that's CBRS spectrum, Citizen Broadband Radio Service, I think. which is also mid-band spectrum, kind of similar to C-band. So that was a resource that T-Mobile has. They were able to launch this kind of nationwide 5G at this much faster mid-band spectrum quickly. So we'll see that Verizon, both Verizon and AT&T, will be able to make some inroads here with their C-band spectrum. So is it a threat to cable? This is interesting here. While it doesn't appear that telco fiber deployments and fixed wireless access are taking many subscribers directly from cable, it does appear likely that these telco initiatives have drawn from DSL subscribers who might otherwise have gone to cable. So what they're saying there is it doesn't seem like it's eating into cable service providers. And again, as I was saying, if you've already got a good fixed wired connection in your home, you've got a cable modem service, it's a hassle to change. So if T-Mobile came and said, hey, here, we can give you 5G service, and you need to get this antenna, and we need to do this, and come in and do that, and you're already happy, why would you do that, right? But if you're on DSL, it'd be like, yeah, absolutely, I'm hating my service, come on in and do it, right? So they have a reason to change. Whereas what they're saying here is maybe cable could have gotten some of these DSL subscribers, but now they're not because of the 5G availability that you have from T-Mobile and that you're going to have from people like Verizon. So I think that's the main impact for cable. All right, well, thanks for joining me. So a lot happening in the broadband area with very interesting with satellite and 5G in the picture, what this is going to do for broadband accessibility in the United States. What is it going to mean for what's served and what's not served as new infrastructure money becomes available? What does that do to the maps? Those maps are scheduled to be out sometime this year. They have to be out before any funds can be allocated from the Biden infrastructure bill. We need the new improved maps. That's part of the bill. It's part of the act there that these maps need to be in place. And those maps are certainly going to have to take into account new fixed wireless options using 5G, which would be over the 100 megabit per second, and then possibly Starlink. If they can get enough satellites up in the air, then Starlink can also be listed on these maps as areas that are served. So it all remains to be seen what happens with that. Thanks for joining me. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and go ahead and subscribe. Click the little bell, and you'll be notified when I'm live. I do live streams every day, every weekday, about broadband deployment news. So about the Biden infrastructure bill, about other money that's available, like the American Recovery Plan Act, ARPA. In fact, I'm doing one tomorrow on ARPA. It's not a particular time, but go ahead and make sure you subscribe, click the little bell, because ARPA has made a couple of changes that are allowing service providers, or actually states and then service providers, to look at additional areas that they can offer broadband. And then there's also something about requiring affordability programs as part of that. So I'll be doing an update on the final rules that just came out from ARPA. So again, thanks for being with me today. I will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.